Hey, good evening, guys. My name is Dr. Nathan Thompson with the Wellness Way Yorkville. Happy Monday and welcome to our live question and answer. I hope we have a lot of questions coming in. We had some people who submitted some questions already that I'm going to cover here in just a second. Things that I know that are going to benefit you as well. Um, so for right now, if you do have a question and you are watching on Facebook or you're watching on our live stream that we have going on Facebook and YouTube, I'll be able to see the questions. We're streaming also to Rumble, but I won't be able to see those questions. I have to do a workaround in order to be able to stream from there. But I may be able to go back and answer some questions that people have too. We're also streaming right now to Instagram. So Instagram through my phone. Awesome to see people joining on that. Thank you guys so much for joining us. To tonight's question and answer. Now, guys, if I do a question and answer, and chances are I probably haven't had enough time in order to come up with the topic. This may also be the case next week as well, as I have to be out of town for the whole entire weekend. However, I want to answer some questions that people have submitted to me and really do a good job of answering that. If we have some questions after that, then I'll do my best to answer those questions too. So live question and answer for tonight. Okay. All right. So a couple of things. Our next inflammation event is on Tuesday, April 23rd. Yes, that is tomorrow at 6:00 p.m. here at our office, the Wellness Way, Yorkville. So a lot of people are always reach out to us and want to work with us. And I'm like, right now, we're only working with people in person and you need to be at that inflammation event. We're not doing that to punish you, but we're helping you to bridge the gap between what you need to do and where you need to start from. So inflammation is interesting. It is the spark that leads to every single chronic disease out there. Now, that's not to say that you don't need inflammation. It is designed for tissue resolution when it comes to our body. But you don't want to be creating it when it doesn't necessarily need it. So weight loss resistance, cancer, infertility, and your hormones. This is all related to inflammation. Thyroid disease, joint pain, arthritis, type 2 diabetes, autoimmunity, any kind of hormone imbalance, guys. Inflammation is the first thing because it's a stressor. And once your body, which is designed to be able to handle stressors, once it has so many stressors, so many that it can't overcome them, that's when you start to see your body adapt. Remember this, the body never messes up, but it will adapt to the specific stressors that you are placing on it as well. So make sure, guys, tomorrow night's the next one. If you haven't registered for that yet and you live within the Chicagoland area, please get registered for that event. I know we have a lot of people registered, but I know that we have some room just for you. So make sure that you get registered for that right now. You can find that if you go to our link tree up at the top, and you will see, just follow the links and you will see work with me in person at the inflammation event. And then you will see and register on Eventbrite for that event. That's tomorrow night. So don't delay in getting to that. Now, people still reach out to me. They're like, hey, how can I work with you? Well, for now, and I'm not saying forever, just because of some time constraints, we're no longer taking remote patients within the contiguous 48 states. I know that we were doing that for a while and we got pretty filled up. So if we have room again, then we'll open that up to be able to watch the webinar. So you won't be able to see the webinar or find the links in order to schedule a discovery call with me. And I'm not doing that to try to punish you, but I'm just doing that for my own time and for my own sanity, because I realize that I can't necessarily help everybody. So that is off the table as of now. And if you snooze, then you're going to lose, at least for the time being. Okay. Now, the other day I gave a gift to people. You may not have seen it, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to extend this. Now, I had to get a new link tree. And the reason why I had to get a new link tree, which is basically just a web page that's got all the links where you can follow and click on that. And the reason why I had to get that was because we had some internet bullies who just reported my content as adult oriented. It's like, I'm not that desperate. All right. Not only that, as I don't have that good of a body I would want to show off. And we couldn't get that fixed. So I made a whole entire new link tree. And if you go on and you click the link, you'll find this. If you're on Instagram, you'll find it at the top of the page. If you're on Twitter, if you're on YouTube, Rumble, you'll be able to find that link tree. If you click on that, you will see the inflammation event that you can work with me directly. Okay. Um, and so you can register for that inflammation event there. And then you'll also see a link on there in order to get a free home workout ebook using minimal equipment. There's about 75 different workouts on there. I've done all of them, and I think they're actually pretty great. But I'm also uh, I might be a little bit biased as well. And I even put on there, if you can see the slides I put on here. This one is my favorite workout, and it's an AMRAP, as many rounds and reps as possible in 11 minutes of doing 11 burpees and 22 air squats. Now, I probably have programmed about 1,500 workouts, and someone says, yeah, I'm a certified personal trainer. I'm like, really? How many people have you worked with? Because I have worked with hundreds upon enders and probably have programmed about a good 1,500 workouts for people. Some were good, some were not so good, but I can promise you this, in this book, it's awesome. Okay. So you can download that book for free if you go to our Linktree account, and you can save that to your computer, your desktop, or you'll be able to find the link and be able to look at it even from your phone as well. Okay. Now, a lot of people will always reach out and they're like, hey, what do I need to do for this? And I'm like, find a Wellness Way doctor that's close to you. A lot of the Wellness Way doctors will work remotely. So you'll see I have that link on Linktree as well. So you'll be able to register for the inflammation event. You'll be able to get a free home workout ebook with minimal equipment needed. And you can also find a Wellness Way doctor to work with you directly as well. So you just need to click on that Linktree account as well. Now, I love this so much because on there, you actually goes to our t-shirt store as well. And this is actually my favorite t-shirt. It says, nobody cares, work harder. Nobody cares. Someone said, that's kind of mean, isn't it? And I'm like, it might be, but that's just the truth. Okay. Is that nobody cares about what happened in the past. Nobody cares about what you're going through right now. Is you just need to get your nose dirty and just continue to work. And I will tell this, is that many times I have worked feeling like a failure for years and years and years. And then if you continue to work, your opportunity will come. So continue to work hard, especially. So if you click on this link that I have here, you can actually order a t-shirt. And on there, you'll see that we have a bunch of different t-shirts, different colors, men's sizes, women's sizes. So on the left is a men's, on the right is actually a woman's t-shirt. Because I don't want a men's t-shirt. I'm like, okay, we'll make women's t-shirts available too. And you'll be able to order your t-shirt. You'll be able to get the color probably that you want, get it in the size that you need. They will print it on demand. It's called Bonfire. And they'll send it to you. You'll have that t-shirt delivered to you in about 2 weeks as well. Okay. And if you get it, wear it with pride and also give it a good name as well. Okay. So, t-shirt store as well. So question and answer. And I know that we have some questions that are streaming in, right now, and I'll do my best in order to answer those. But we have some people who ask questions. I'm like, you know what? I got to answer this as well. But they say, hey, Dr. Nate, what are your thoughts on creatine for a woman, especially, yay or nay? So here's my thoughts on creatine. Okay. Now, creatine is actually an amino acid that's made specifically in skeletal muscles and things like that actually help with the production of ATP, or to be able to use your muscles. So creatine has actually been shown, and this has been around for a very, very long time, 35, probably 40 years. But creatine has actually been shown to improve muscle performance. Now, how much creatine should you take? I actually take it, and I take approximately 2 to 3 grams of it per day. Okay. Now, you can get creatine from your diet, especially if you're eating a lot of muscle meat and things like that. But it's very hard to get 2 to 3 grams of creatine just from eating a bunch of muscle meat or red meat or things like that. So I do, in fact, supplement with creatine. Now, the thing with creatine is this, is that it's not a steroid. It's not going to pack on muscle. And it doesn't necessarily even make you stronger. But here's what creatine will do. This is what I tell people. If you do, in fact, take creatine, one of the things that you may notice after a little while is you may notice that if you were lifting weights and you could do 8 reps to failure by taking creatine, you may be able to get 10 reps. So it doesn't necessarily make you stronger as much as it will prevent you from fatiguing quicker so that you can get more reps in at X amount of weight. And if you do that enough, then yes, it technically can actually make you stronger as a result. And if you're able to do more reps, then yes, it can help indirectly with helping you put on muscle mass. Now, here's the thing. Here's the caveat with creatine, because some people will take it and they're like, man, this really worked. And some people may take it like, it didn't really work that much. And here's the difference, in my opinion, of why it will work better for some person versus another. And it has to do with a process known as methylation. Okay. What on earth is methylation? It's not something that is magical. It happens in your body literally billions of times per second. Methylation is just the addition of a carbon and 3 hydrogens. And there's nothing fancy about it. But what is so special about it is that it happens billions of times a second within your body. So you need a chemical process known as methylation in order to create creatine. Okay. So if you're a poor methylator, then the addition of creatine, you'll probably have some very noticeable results if you start supplementing with it. Anywhere from, I've seen 2 grams, 5 grams, anywhere in that range. But you have to be doing some weightlifting in order to notice a difference. It's not just taking it and sitting on the couch. You're not going to notice anything magical from doing it. Now, I'm going to show you a lab from someone who is an extremely poor methylator. The reason why he's a poor methylator is because you see a massive buildup in what's known as homocysteine. Okay. If you're a poor methylator, you're going to see a big buildup in homocysteine, which is an inflammatory marker. And people who do have very high levels of homocysteine, that's why I think it's important to get checked. But if you have very high levels of homocysteine, then there's a lot of things that can start to go sideways inside your body. In fact, homocysteine is also linked to heart disease and vascular issues and things like that. I've seen people with homocysteine levels were so high that they couldn't get out of bed. And I actually believe that people who have fibromyalgia type symptoms are going to have high homocysteine levels, especially. So this person, you can see tremendously high homocysteine levels. We were able to get that down quite a bit, but it wasn't through creatine. But you could probably see, had a lot of skeletal muscle weakness, and he did. And that was just a side effect of having high homocysteine levels, just being a really poor methylator, especially. Okay. So am I a fan of creatine? Yes, I absolutely am. If you are working out, you're doing weightlifting type exercises, then probably supplementing with 2 to 3 grams of it per day, you probably will notice some noticeable results. And if you see that, wow, I got so much better, you probably get some lab work done and see how well you're actually methylating, because some people, they'll notice a little bit of difference. Some people, they'll notice a big difference. And the difference is how well they're doing a process known as methylation. Okay. Now I had another question that came by and I said, hey, Dr. Nate, how do I improve my insulin sensitivity? And I think that's a great question, because nobody talks about insulin sensitivity. You know what they talk about? Their A1C, or they talk about their blood sugars. Now, insulin is a hormone that's released from the pancreas, and it attaches to specific tissues like a lock and key that opens up the membrane of the receptors in order to bring sugar into the cell, which sugar for many of the cells is the preferred method of energy metabolism. Okay. There's no doubt about it that sugar is the preferred fuel, because it's just the one that's easiest converted. If you talk about ketosis and things like that, it's not the preferred fuel. The preferred fuel is, in fact, actually sugar. So how do you become more sensitive to insulin? And I want you to think about it from a little bit different perspective. How do you become more sensitive to alcohol? How do you become more sensitive to nicotine? How do you become more sensitive to anything is to withdraw from it. Okay. Now, there's a lot of people who have insulin sensitivity issues, especially in through the liver. There's a lot of reasons for that, but I'm going to give you some things that you can do that are 100% within your control that you can start doing actually today in order to improve your insulin sensitivity. Now, just like I said, if you want to become very resistant to alcohol or resistant to nicotine, put a bunch of it in and you notice that your receptors will downregulate. And I've talked about leptin sensitivity too. As well, why people they've lost the ability to shut off their grazing or their eating every single day. So insulin sensitivity. How do you improve that? Well, I'm going to tell you this. You're not going to improve insulin sensitivity by taking a GLP-1 agonist. You're not, because the whole thing of what these drugs, these weight loss medications, in fact, I had a woman today, didn't see her for a while. She decided that she was going to go on something known as Mounjaro, and she went on it for a month, and then she went off of it because she couldn't afford it because it was so expensive. And she saw her blood sugars just absolutely spike up afterwards, because what those things do is they increase insulin. So if you're insulin sensitive, you can't ramp that up, which is why you have to be on that medication for the rest of your life. Because as soon as you go off of it, your pancreas can't keep up on its own by making that much insulin. And you're already insulin resistant since you made it worse, even by being on that medication. So how do you improve insulin sensitivity without being on drugs or anything like that? So here's what I would do. Number one, reduce your sugars. Okay. Number one, reduce your sugars. This is why, guys, you can join the Wellness Way No Sugar Challenge group on Facebook. We've done a meats and veggies only challenge for a whole entire month. Reduce your sugars. Yes. You're like, well, I don't eat sugar. And I'm like, yeah, but you probably eat a lot of bread. You probably eat a lot of grains, a lot of starches, probably a lot of potatoes and things like that. So reduce your sugars. Number two, please make sure that you are sleeping 8 to 9 hours a night. And I'm not going to get into how to improve your sleep because there's a lot of different things that you can do too. But if you don't sleep, you are just increasing your exposure to cortisol, which is always trying to mobilize sugars. And usually people who aren't sleeping a lot tend to eat a little bit more as well. So make sure that you're sleeping 8 to 9 hours per night. Number three, make sure that you are getting your mental stress under control, because mental stress causes high amounts of cortisol. High amounts of cortisol will cause a lot of blood sugar mobilization or glycogen mobilization from either the liver or from your skeletal muscles. Number four, work on putting on more muscle mass. Okay. Here's what's interesting is muscles don't become insulin resistant. The liver can, but muscles don't become insulin resistant. And here's what's interesting. You ever notice that if someone has cancer, they always check the liver in order to see if the cancer has spread to the liver? And one of the theories is because cancer doesn't spread to areas where there's no insulin resistance. And yes, the first area that happens is within the liver. And so start working on increasing your muscle mass as well. And this is why I think doing heavy lifting is very, very important. Things like deadlifting, pressing, squatting, and things like that are the easiest exercises in order to put on muscle mass because they have the highest area. So if you look at where most of your muscle mass is, it's in your butt, it's in your thighs, it's in your back. And those things are the areas that you can put on the most amount of muscle mass. And then don't forget about high intensity training. Okay. Doing high intensity, short duration type exercise. And yes, guys, it is uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable, but I did it today. And yes, I hated every minute of it, but it was uncomfortable. But I also know that there's a tremendous benefit from actually doing it. So doing some high intensity training. And even if you download my ebook, you can do this at low intensity. You can also do this at high intensity as well. And you also notice it will put on some muscle mass if you commit to doing that for a whole entire year. So reduce your sugars, make sure you're getting enough sleep, reduce your mental stress, increase your muscle mass, start doing some high intensity training. Because the reason why is high intensity training will make your that'll make your liver and it'll make your skeletal muscles very hungry for sugar, which will help insulin sensitivity especially. Now, here's another question people ask, say, hey, Dr. Nate, what's your opinion on tattoos? And I'm like, oh, you didn't see the video about tattoos? All right, so I'm going to give you my opinion when it comes to tattoos. A lot of people had a problem with it. You know why? Because your identity is based on the ink that you decide to put on your body. So here's what's so interesting is my identity has nothing to do with my looks. My identity has nothing to do with the ink that I draw on my body. My identity has nothing to do with that, and stop making it yours. So here's my opinion on tattoos, because people will ask me in consults about alcohol, and here's what I have to say. You know, if you're on your deathbed There's no one on their deathbed that says, "Oh, if only I would have just drank more. I would have accomplished so much more in my life." And I never see anybody on their deathbed saying, "If I would have just gotten one more tattoo." And I say that jokingly, but think of this. You can live your whole life and not get a tattoo. You can live your whole life and not get alcohol and not have alcohol. So there's nothing really to be gained from things that your body doesn't necessarily need. And I believe your body doesn't need any tattoos, doesn't need any of it. So what's your opinion on it? Well, think of this. If you put ink underneath your skin, basically you're going to put a foreign body underneath a barrier where a lot of your immune system is going to sit. And so the only thing that it does is just constantly irritate the immune system. That's why I have seen women with color tattoos start to get a lot of problems on their skin and things like that because yes, it can start to anger the immune system. Some people actually went as far as to say, yeah, but it boosts the immune system. I'm like, it doesn't boost the immune system. That's like saying I got an infection and pulled my blood and my white blood cell count was up and my immune system is boosted. No, it's responding to something that it needs to respond to. So it's not boosting the immune system. It's responding to an irritant, as well. So my idea with tattoos, and I'll tell people, I was like, if you got them, don't get any more. That's what I have to say. Just don't get any more. Why do you want to continue to irritate the organ that has the largest surface area, which is going to be the skin? Here's another one, and this has to do with supplements. Okay, Dr. Nate, what's your idea about supplements? And you notice I don't talk a lot about supplements and things like that, but here's my idea of supplements. This is what I actually tell patients in consults. If I want you to go on some certain things, then the idea is for you to not need those for the rest of your life. Okay. Here's what a supplement is. It's there to dig you out of a hole. It's there to dig you out of a hole faster. Okay. Am I opposed to supplements? Nope. But if you're taking 35 supplements, then one of the things that I tell you to do is you need to figure out why you're digging a hole so fast. And so I've seen people on 35 supplements. I just kind of shake my head and I'm like, oh no, because you'd be amazed at how many people are taking supplements just because it was on Instagram or it was on TikTok and they just bought it hook, line, and sinker, which is why even for people, I'll be like, you know what? Here's how you can get it from food instead. But a lot of people, they don't want to get it from food because that requires a little bit of work. Okay. So if you're a person that's on a lot of supplements, the first thing I'm going to tell you is you need to figure out how to stop digging. Okay. You need to figure out how to stop digging. Now, what is the hardest thing to get from nutrition? Because someone asked me this. I'm going to give you my opinion. The hardest thing to get is your RDA of potassium, is to get your RDA of potassium. The reason why, if you look at the RDA, it's about 4,000 milligrams. I haven't seen one person get 4,000 milligrams of potassium per day. And no, bananas aren't the best one. Avocados are a great source because there's not so much sugar attached to it as well. But to get your RDA of potassium, you would need to eat about 10 to 12 small avocados every single day. So potassium is one of the hardest things. Potassium is something that I supplement with, mainly because I work out a lot and know just taking some LMNT or taking some key nutrients or something like that, you're not going to be getting enough of what you're losing when it comes to exercise, sweating, and things like that. So I think that a lot of people are, in fact, very deficient in potassium. So you need a lot of potassium. And if you don't have enough potassium, you can start to have some problems with fatigue, muscle fatigue. It's even tied with your blood sugar levels. You need potassium in order to secrete insulin. You need potassium is linked with weight loss and things like that. And I think a lot of people just aren't getting enough potassium, which is why I take about 6 to 9 potassium pills every single day in order to get 1,500 to 2,000 milligrams every single day. Okay. Now, for more information, we have a lot of recipes to find a Wellness Way doctor, or if you just want great tips and things like that, you can go to thewellnessway.com. So people ask me all the time, find a doctor that's close to you. If you can't find someone close to you, then find someone who can work with you remotely. Go to thewellnessway.com. You can type in a search, put in your zip code, and see if there's a Wellness Way doctor that's actually close to you. Okay. All right, guys. So I'm going to go ahead and release the questions now. And let's see if I can get through this because I know a bunch of them actually came in. Okay. All right. So, Dr. Nate, what do you think about castor oil packs? Kathleen, I know I answered this question a week ago, last Monday, or maybe 2 Mondays ago. Are you a fan of castor oil packs? The answer is yes. In fact, you can even put castor oil on your eyes, and it's very hydrating, especially if you've got crow's feet and things like that. But castor oil packs are kind of an addition, which is why I always say it's not going to move the needle. It's just something to help you move the needle. And so that's why you need to be handling the biggest things, the foundational things first and foremost, before you're worried about castor oil packs and things like that. Okay. All right, let's go to another question. I think this one is from YouTube. I have a 6-month-old and currently breastfeeding, haven't started her on solid yet. She was having interest in food, no longer spitting out milk. When would you start food and what kind of food? All right. So now I have an infant. He's about March, April. I'm doing the math in my head. 14 months old now. We did not start him on solid food until about a year old. The reason why is babies are born with a leaky gut. Have you ever seen, like, if a mom can't breastfeed and gives her formula and the baby is just constantly always irritated, has gastric bloating, arching their back, it has all kinds of issues? Well, they're probably responding to the food, because if you introduce food too early, then you can actually have them develop a lot of food allergies that you'll start to see later on. And if you start to see you introduce food too early, you'll start to see their skin start to get inflamed and things like that. So the longer you can wait, the better. Okay. The longer you can wait, the better. And I would try to breastfeed as long as possible and then start to introduce food at about 1 year of age. But the fact that she's interested in it, then look at her teeth too, because if she's getting teeth early, that may be a good indication that you might be able to start food a little bit earlier as well. Okay. So thank you, Liddell, for those great questions. All right. What is your opinion of trisomal glutathione? It's a liposomal combination of glutathione and acetylcysteine and reduced glutathione. Okay. So, Dennis, that's a great question. The thing with glutathione is that it really is such a large amino acid that you really can't absorb it as glutathione in the gastrointestinal system, which means that your liver has to be able to manufacture that. So the biggest thing that I would tell you is that any kind of glutathione that you might be taking probably isn't, in fact, glutathione. It's getting broken down. And that's why it needs to be manufactured on its own within the liver. And this is why you need to get the building blocks for that, so that it has enough raw material for it to build within the liver. But I'm not a fan of people taking glutathione supplements or things like that. Occasionally we'll give it to people, especially, but usually we've done some testing on them first. So it's not a huge fan of that, only because it really just doesn't, it's too big to get absorbed specifically within the gastrointestinal system. Okay. All right. So one more, and then we'll see if we can go on to Instagram as well. Lois asks, what are your thoughts on mushroom water or mushroom hot cocoa? I don't have a problem with that. And in fact, I would probably say, I think that everyone should be getting some form of medicinal mushrooms, but I don't know if you're going to be getting enough of that if you're taking mud water or mushroom coffee or mushroom hot tea. Sometimes we'll give people very, very large amounts of things like reishi, turkey tail, chaga mushrooms in large amounts. And yes, this is really considered a food, but the problem is you don't want to be foraging for where a lot of these are found. Reishi, you'll find in the mountains, in North Carolina, you'll see it all over the place. Chaga, you'll see it come from birch, in a lot of times in northerly climates and stuff. And you can't really go and get it and bring it down. So I'm a fan of taking high amounts, but they're also, we don't give it to people unless we see a reason that they actually need it too. Okay. So great question. All right. Let me scroll back on Instagram and see if I guarantee I've missed a bunch of questions. All right. How do I get on Linktree? Rita, you go to the top of the page if you're still on, and you'll see the link that's called Linktree, and then you'll see a page, and you'll see a bunch of links on there. You can follow those to where we have an ebook or register for the inflammation event and things like that. Do you need the B vitamin for creatine to work? Okay. No, you don't need B vitamins because you're giving creatine in the full form, so you don't need any extra B vitamins. How can you find out if you have good or poor methylation? You can run a methylation panel, but I'd say if you're working with the Wellness Way doctor, they can actually run that for you. But if you are constantly have high levels of homocysteine or also SAW, which is S-adenosyl homocysteine, which is a precursor to that's really elevated as well, then you're probably not a very good methylator either. Okay. All right. Let me see. I guarantee. Why do I always wake up 3 to 4 hours after falling asleep? Okay. So probably one of the things that you might have, there may be some blood sugar issues that are going on, or you're having a really hard time of shutting your brain down to be able to stay asleep. Okay. So check your A1C, check your insulin levels, because people with poor blood sugar control, a lot of times they'll be waking up in the middle of the night and they'll feel wired, like, oh, I can't get back to bed. And one of the reasons why is because you had a cortisol response, because you can't keep your blood sugars, pretty consistent throughout the night. So you'll see a dip, and when your blood sugars dip, you're going to have a massive cortisol response, and you're going to wake up at that point. Okay. The other thing too is you may have a hard time with gamma aminobutyric acid, which is an inhibitory neurotransmitter, and that's why things like L-theanine, magnesium citrate, magnesium threonate, even chamomile can help people, especially falling asleep. And no, taking a bunch of melatonin probably isn't going to help you as well. So I would look maybe a little bit deeper as well. Okay. What's the best treatment for pulmonary hypertension? All right. Well, there's a problem with the lungs. And so one of the things I would try to figure out too is always work with the Wellness Way doctor. I would try to figure out, why have the lungs been inflamed? The other thing too is some of it may be medication induced, but why have the lungs been inflamed, especially now, but also in the past? What's the best thing for migraines before a menstrual cycle? I had a young woman who had this problem, terrible migraines every single month right before a menstrual cycle. And a lot of times, if you see a decrease in your estrogens as they rapidly decline and get excreted from the body, which causes you to go into your menstrual cycle, I would actually say the best thing is good, healthy estrogens, plural, because there's more than one estrogen, metabolism from the liver. And I remember she would have migraine headaches every single month. This went on for about 10 years. And within a few weeks, no more migraine headaches after that. And that was the first time that had actually had happened too. We just improved her estrogen metabolism, specifically within the liver. Okay. All right. Let's see if we can take a question from Facebook. Kathleen says, love my mushroom supplement. Thank you, Kathleen. I appreciate that very much. And I appreciate the hard work that you put in. All right. Thank you so much for doing it. How dangerous, Talon, how dangerous is artificial fragrance? All right. Now, I would say get rid of the artificial fragrances that are coming in things like your clothes that you are washing, your dryer sheets. Even like, I don't even like cologne and things like that. If you want to smell really good, then just get some essential oils, like bergamot or something like that. And that will help you smell very manly as well. But if you ever noticed, you remember those Glade plugins? Oh, jeez. What a great way to make your whole house toxic. Or the ones that came as an artificial, and then you would heat it up, and then it would just, after a month, it would just dry out. And But those things, you'll notice that there is a lot of people who it gets them sick, they get headaches, and so they smell that in and they just don't do very well with it. So the more that you can do, especially if you're from a young age, the more that you can do that's natural, not artificial fragrances, the better you're going to be doing for yourself. Okay. All right. Sherry says, how do I find a Wellness Way doctor in Ontario, Canada? All right. There are no wellness ways in Canada. And you know why? I saw what went on in Canada over the last few years, and it was horrible, absolutely horrible. This question gets a lot to Dr. Patrick, who started the Wellness Way. He's like, "Are we ever going to get anything in Canada?" He's like, "Not if Trudeau is there." So we won't have a Wellness Way doctor in Canada for quite a while. But if you're in Ontario, Canada, there are some doctors that sit pretty close to the border, Iron Mountain, Michigan. And I know that there are some Wellness Way doctors in Grand Rapids, Michigan. So you have to go over the border. I would say your best bet is to go over the border, get the testing that you need, and then go back over the border and then be able to meet with them and get what you need on the United States side, especially. So I don't mean to disparage Canada, but during COVID, Canada sucked. Can I say that? Sorry, guys, but it really did. Okay. All right. So let's go over to Instagram. I think I'm keeping up okay. How can I get off levothyroxine? Okay. Can I get off of it? Now, I have had some people who are able to get off of levothyroxine. The thing is you got to work with the Wellness Way doctor, and it can take a while in order for things to start to recover. But if you're on levothyroxine, the first thing that I would ask you is get the proper testing first. You need to see T3, you need to see T4, free and total. You need to see TPO antibodies, TGA antibodies. You need to get a better idea. Is your problem a conversion issue? And I've gone over this, a lot. You can go back and check our other lives. Is it a conversion issue? Is it an immune issue? What's the biggest? Is it just I'm not getting enough of certain nutrients type of issue? What's the biggest reason why? Then figure it out, and then you have to work on that. Most thyroid issues are not a thyroid issue in and of themselves. They're an immune issue, and you got to figure out how to get rid of that immune system response, okay? But can you get off of it? That depends if it's an immune issue, how much of the thyroid has actually been damaged. There's been people that I've seen very high antibody levels. I'm like, you probably have damaged a lot of your thyroid. And it's the same thing with like type 1 diabetes, where it's like, yeah, most of your pancreas is just not working very well. So you're probably going to need to be on exogenous insulin for the rest of your life. But most people, when they start to have thyroid issues, it gets such mismanaged so badly that nobody ever does anything in order to shut down if it's an immune response that's going on. And that's one of the biggest tragedies, is they just let that immune response gnaw at the thyroid and destroy it, so that they're going to need some kind of supplemental exogenous hormone just to be able to keep those levels up. However, I am a bigger fan of taking a thyroid, like a desiccated thyroid hormone, but a lot of doctors don't want to do that. And the reason why is this: they don't know how to read your labs after that. So that's the tragedy. Because what's interesting, if you look at levothyroxine, there's corn and there's talc in it. You know how many people have a food allergy to corn? So even that can be irritating the immune system as well. So that's why I'm actually a bigger fan of a desiccated thyroid, in which it can provide some of the hormones for that. It can give you some T3, some T4, some T1. But the problem is doctors don't ever want to do it because their labs don't look normal. So you have to be able to look at the labs to make sure that you are taking actually enough. So I would actually, I would prefer that people would be on some kind of desiccated thyroid that's going to provide some T3, T4, even T1, which they don't even know what that's for, but you still need it. So yes, but you got to work with a Wellness Way doctor who knows how to test you first and foremost, test you properly. All right. So great question. All right, guys. Any other questions that we have? If you do, it's now or never. How many carbs do you have before a workout? Usually 0. Okay. Usually 0. Only because I'm carrying enough fat. I don't necessarily need carbs. I did a workout today. Guys, really the only thing that I've eaten is about 75 grams of bone broth protein. And yes, I know I should eat more. I'm going to go eat, after this and actually eat a meal. But how many carbs do I have before a workout? I don't have any extra. I don't have any extra ones too. Now, have I taken some easily digestible carbs if I was in a competition or performing and I need to do well? Yes, I actually did better, but I'm not currently doing that, so I'm not worried about winning a prize or anything like that. All right, so Colleen, I think you put it the best. Now, does he want you sick and dying? Maybe. But it's interesting some of the things that he did. Holy cow. Some of the things that he did. I'm going to get banned on Facebook for saying this. Some of the things that he did that were absolutely atrocious. Okay. All right. So any Wellness Way doctors in South Dakota? I know in North Dakota, Rita, but you'll have to go to wellnessway.com, type in your zip code to see the ones that are going to be closest to you. Okay. So go, can too many supplements affect liver enzymes? No, it really can't affect liver enzymes. When I see people who have elevated liver enzymes, the first thing that I'm going to look at is, all right, do they have a fatty liver? Number one, or number two, how much alcohol are they drinking, and are they on a statin drug? That's the first thing that I'm looking for if I see liver enzymes that have been elevated to, or if they actually got the what. But guys, what's so interesting is that when they say that supplements don't work, and I'm like, yeah, they're not going to work because you know what's stronger? An immune response is always going to trump any supplement that you are taking. That's one of the biggest things. So that's why you have to figure out, where am I injuring myself? Because if you're taking 35 supplements, you're just going to you're going to put yourself in a rabbit hole that you don't know how to get out of. Okay. So that's why you got to be really careful of self-supplementing, because if you do that, pretty soon you have no idea why you're taking it, and you just keep taking it because you're afraid that if I take it, then everything's going to go, sideways. We call that the Dr. Oz effect. Okay. Georgia Meyer, thank you for replying. Hill City, South Dakota has a Wellness Way clinic. All right. South Dakota is very big in surface area, not big in population. So you may have to drive just 4 to 5 hours in order to get there. All right. All right. Thank you guys so much for the questions. Any other questions, guys? Any other questions? Let me scroll back and make sure that I didn't. Nope. I think I got all of them. All right. Are electrolyte powders good to put in your water? And if so, what is a good one? Okay. I would say this. I always say I have water here, and you know what? I have electrolytes in it. The electrolytes that I use, I have no affiliation with this, is called Key Nutrients. And yes, if you put, if it's lemon flavor to sweeten with stevia, the only time I don't recommend that for people would be, especially if they have like a corn allergy, in which you're getting some of the vitamin C from citric acid, because that's derived from corn. But Key Nutrients are a good one. LMNT. I'll put this in the comments if you can see this. LMNT. That's also a good one. And there's some other good ones, but if you're looking for an electrolyte replacement, please don't use Gatorade. But look and see, what is in the electrolyte powder. Look at always the ingredients, and make sure that it should be sweetened with stevia or something like that. But you'll probably see that they'll put a little salt in it. They'll put a little bit of potassium, probably some B vitamins in there as well. And I really think that it's important to drink water with a purpose. Okay. That's why, if people don't want to do that, that's why I tell them, hey, put some sea salt in there. Make sure you're getting some extra sodium as well. Can you take colostrum and probiotics at the same time? That's a great question. I know that colostrum is picking up as far as popularity, but I will tell you this: I've seen people on colostrum and it didn't do one thing for them, and one of the reasons why is because um, it goes deeper than just taking colostrum. But this is my opinion on probiotics, especially, is that think of this. You need a healthy gastrointestinal microbiome, but what you need before that is you need proper stomach acid, you need proper bile acids. You need that first and foremost because that's actually what can keep the infection down within the gastrointestinal system. You also need to make sure that you're getting enough fiber, things like that. But a lot of times people will just dump a bunch of probiotics in. And I'm like, you know what that's like? If you keep the environment the same, it's no different than going to Menards, which is like your local home improvement store, or going to Lowe's or going to Home Depot or whatever, and picking up some grass seed. And you're like, I need the best grass seed. And then you take it home, you bought the most expensive grass seed, and then you planted it on the sidewalk. Which is what a lot of people, typically do. And I rarely, if ever, recommend probiotics in people starting off, especially if we're doing a stool testing. I'm like, you got to get the environment right for it first and foremost. But if you take that grass seed and you plant it on dirt, it has sunshine, it has water, and it's healthy dirt, and it's got enough sunshine for it, then it's going to have no problem populating at that point. This is why probiotics, you need a good environment that's going on. This is why getting a stool test could be very, very important for that. And I think that there's things that'll be better than just than taking colostrum, especially. Okay. So I think that there are things that could be better doing that. And this is why, guys, stress, guys, is an absolute killer, is because when you're high stress, your stomach acid is going to go down really badly. And if you have high amount of stress, this is why it can wreck everything if you don't get it under control. And this is why, if you ever notice when people are under a high amount of stress, why they start to develop a lot of bloating and gastrointestinal issues. And that has to do with this, you don't sterilize your food, you don't break your proteins down. And this is why someone can develop a lot of IgG food allergies as well. I'm in my late 30s and I'm having issues with thyroid or menopause. What test should I take for hormone tests? All my surgeons say that hormones can't be tested. Okay. I will say this. If you are having some issues, please reach out with the Wellness Way doctor, because here's what I love. I love that you're asking that question. Here's what I don't love: the fact that you want to get hormone tests to try to figure it out on your own. Okay. All of your hormones can be tested. Absolutely. And that's why you may need to get a full thyroid panel. You also may need to get a Dutch test, as well. But working with the Wellness Way doctor, he or she can probably say, here's what I would get, here's what I wouldn't get, in order to start looking at some issues. A lot of times people blame their thyroid for everything, and it's just not the case. Hormones can make you feel lousy, but they're not the reason why you feel lousy. There's underlying issues that you really, really have to address big time. Okay. All right. So, Ross, thank you for your questions. This is probably be the last one that I will answer. What do you do with warts, and how do you get rid of them? Okay. Now, first thing I would say with warts, and I've had people whose warts have just fallen off. The first thing I always do is improve your immune system big time. I used to get warts on my hands, and a lot of it had to do with neurologically what was happening into the neck. Because remember, you got nerve endings that innervate the vascular supply going into those areas. So, what's interesting is, yeah, you can get them burned off, but they can just come right back again. But when it comes to warts, this is why, hey, how strong is your immune system? How strong is your nerve system? And then the other thing too is there are certain things that you can do if you put it directly on the skin that can cause things to just start to slough off. And one of the things that you can do is some concentrated apple cider vinegar on that area that can actually kill off some of the viral issues why the wart would be growing, as well. And it's not like, hey, this is something that I'm going to put on 19 different areas, but is something that can actually help. And this is also true. And I have had people who have a lot of toenail fungus. We get them healthier and their toenails get healthier as well. But one of the things that you can do is you can apply silver to the toenails, let it just marinate on there, or you can do an apple cider vinegar soak into the toenails. But you got to do it often, and you got to do it at least for 20, 30 minutes, at a time in order for it to have an effect. And I'm not a fan of just taking some of these antifungals because they can be really hard on the body. They can be really, really nasty. Okay. I remember I had a guy who was putting on something for like a foot fungus, and I kept looking at his labs and I'm like, why is his estradiol so high? And then I looked at one of the side effects of that medication, and it was climbing estrogen levels. So we figured it out and things went down eventually. So, all right, guys. Thank you so much for all of your questions. I truly, truly appreciate all of the questions. I appreciate the fact that you like, that you follow, all the time that you share, things like that. And so I'm going to try to have a topic for next week. I know that I have to go out of town. I have to take my daughter to a volleyball tournament about 4 hours away. I'm going to try to have a topic by then, as well. So if you have any ideas, leave it in the comments below, and I'll do my best to try to accommodate that. But I have some ideas, but sometimes I just have, I'm just like, I'm out of ideas here. But sometimes you guys give me great ideas to talk about. So I appreciate all of that. Especially giving me some ideas. So guys, thank you again for joining my live broadcast. Make sure that you share this if you're on Facebook. I appreciate all of you. I love all of you. Thank you guys so much. And then make sure too, that if you're from the Chicagoland area, make sure that you get to the inflammation event. Our next one's going to be tomorrow at 6:00 p.m. You can follow our link tree. If you go to the top of the page, find our link tree, you can register for it right there. So guys, thank you so much. I appreciate all of you, care about all of you too. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your night. And as I always say,